My name is Sarah Zambor, and I'm a Board Certified Behavior Analyst at DiNovi Associates. Today I will be providing a brief overview of the inventory of good learning repertoires created by Steve Ward, as well as discussing dimension grids and how dimension grids can be incorporated into your learner's current programming. This video covers items F1, F2, and F3 and F4 on the BACB 5th edition task list. Unlike some of the more commonly known assessments currently published that focus on assessing linguistic, social, functional, or academic skills that the learner has acquired, the Inventory of Good Learning Repertoires, or IGLR, focuses on assessing how the learner has acquired previous skills and what additional skills we can address to facilitate a simple process to teach learners. Steve Ward refers to learners who are easy to teach as good learners, and defines a good learner as someone who responds readily to a wide variety of instructional conditions. The IGLR helps to determine how well your learner performs in a variety of settings and looks at various aspects of skill acquisition that are often not formally assessed. Some examples include, can your learner tolerate being corrected or tolerate various prompting methods? Can your learner work well with a variety of instructors? Can your learner perform without reinforcers in sight? Can your learner stay on task without an instructor in close proximity? Can your learner tolerate a change in routine? And can your learner continue to work when presented with a challenging situation? The IGLR breaks down the skills just mentioned, as well as several additional skills, into 10 sections, including behavioral accesses, behavioral supports, resilience and regulation, readiness, perseverance and focus, flexibility, consequences, preference for learning channels, spontaneity, and potential to benefit from inclusion. Each section is then broken down further to assess the learner's strengths and deficits in each of the 10 sections just mentioned. For example, the section titled Resilience and Regulation contains 13 questions related to that domain and focuses on skills such as surrendering reinforcers, tolerating no, appropriately seeking comfort when necessary, and tolerating corrections, to name a few. The practitioner conducting the assessment reads through each of the questions in the various section and fills out a rating scale for each question, which includes a code of either not applicable or a score of 0, 1, 2, or 3. The criteria for each rating scale varies throughout each section and is outlined in detail at the beginning of each of the 10 sections. The learner's total score in each section is divided by the total possible score in the section, and the learner's percentage in each domain is graphed on a percentage grid so that the practitioner can visually analyze the learner's strengths and weaknesses. For example, in this section, Resilience and Regulation, there are a total of 13 questions, equaling a total point value of 39 points for the section. If the learner scores 18 out of 39 possible points, the learner's score would be 46% on that section, and 46% would be graphed on a percentage grid in the corresponding section. As a general rule, it is best to target sections when the learner scores below 50%. However, programming considerations will vary amongst learners. In the book, Teaching Good Learning Repertoires by Steve Ward and Teresa Grimes, the authors provide specific details regarding how to interpret your learner's percentage grid, as well as recommendations for possible starting points in programming. While the percentage grids are helpful in compiling a list of broad recommendations, Ward and Grimes note that the real purpose of the IGLR include identifying potential target repertoires, tracking progress on those repertoires, diagnosing how to begin teaching a novice or resistant learner, identifying artificial supports in place for experienced learners that should be faded out, identifying how each learner prefers to learn, and identifying repertoires to target prior to change in placement. One way to tackle some of the mentioned objectives is to utilize dimension grids. In the book's Teaching Good Learner Repertoires, sample dimension grids are provided throughout each of the 10 sections as a guide depicting ways a practitioner can initially make a target acquisition skill easier for the learner to acquire. As the learner begins to acquire the skill, the dimension grids can be used to determine ways to systematically increase the difficulty of the skill, with the end goal being the learner can perform the skill with no additional supports. Considerations for creating dimension grids include the number of responses required and/or the length of the time the learner is expected to engage in the activity, the difficulty of the task, the prompting methods utilized to assist the learner during the tasks, the context in which the skill is being performed, and the learner's motivation. One advantage of using dimension grids with a learner is that they help ensure that too many new challenges are not introduced to the learner at one time, and instead, they help isolate the specific behavior or challenge the practitioner wants to address. This is referred to by Ward and Grimes as isolating instructional priorities. A practitioner can set up dimension grids by creating a chart with 2 columns titled Easier and Harder, with potential ways to make a task easier and harder for the learner listed under the corresponding sections. A sample dimension grid for the program, Follow an Independent Schedule, may include using preferred activities, incorporating a few activities, utilizing additional reinforcers, ensuring the activities used are brief, and using simple activities listed under the Easy column of the dimension grid. Using less preferred activities, using several activities, refraining from using additional reinforcers, including longer activities, and including difficult activities may be listed under the Harder column of the dimension grid. When using dimension grids, the aspect of the grid that are being isolated should be underlined, bolded, or circled in each corresponding column, so whoever is working with a learner knows what is being targeted. As the learner acquires the target skill with the current dimensions in place, the practitioner can then move forward on the dimension grid by decreasing one or more supports from the Easier column and increasing one or more challenges from the Harder column. If the learner is failing to make progress once several easy supports have been decreased and several harder supports have increased, the practitioner may need to move backwards on the dimension grid. When moving backwards, the practitioner should analyze why the learner is not progressing and make the necessary adjustments in programming. As always, data should be collected during programming and criteria should be determined for each learner regarding when to move forward or backwards on the dimension grid. While dimension grids may be similar across learners, practitioners should always ensure the dimension grids that are used are individualized based on the learner's current strengths and weaknesses. While the IGLR can be a valuable resource as it challenges practitioners to analyze not only which skills the learners have acquired, but also helps them analyze how well and under what conditions the learner can or cannot demonstrate various skills, it is important to keep in mind that this assessment tool may not suffice as a standalone assessment, depending on your learner's funding source. For example, most insurance companies will require an additional, more commonly used assessment tools, such as the VB Map, the ABLS Revise, the AFLS be used in addition to the IGLR. For more in-depth information regarding the IGLR assessment tool, check out the books, The Inventory of Good Learner Repertoires, or Teaching Good Learner Repertoires, or visit www.wholechildconsulting.com for numerous free resources. If you would like to help disseminate the science, please like and share this video.